I'm happy, I'm sad, compassionate and bad. Can't sleep at night, can't do anything right. I want to be alone, but not on my own. I'm in love but I hate, I'm a burden on the state. I'm possessed by the war, I killed, what for? I'm disloyal cause I'm ill, is it right to kill? I cry for no reason, my country shouts treason. I was 19 in June, under a bright crystal moon. I died that day, but I'm still here to say, for the brave and the free, my award, PTSD.
You know, the way, I don't know if you've ever done this, with a piece of metal, you kept bending it, eventually it breaks. That's the same with the human mind.
We didn't even think about our mental state. We was asked to do a job and we done it.
I've had occasions of seeing a dead person in a supermarket or a clothing store, which is quite frightening.
Only 3 years ago, I had an incident where I tried to commit suicide.
Mentally, well, from my point of view, I just had to get on with it because I didn't have anybody there to help me otherwise.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that people can develop after experiencing a distressing event. Sufferers of PTSD experience many symptoms that can inhibit their day-to-day lives.
Right, well, the first time I was shot in the knee, which is not so dramatic as it sounds, in as much as there's no big screaming and falling all over the place. And to be honest, it's a bit not quite so clear now, because the first thing they did was shoot me with sort of stuff to sort of take away the pain. That lasted till I went to the hospitals, and eventually I spent in the Royal Military Hospitals at the time there. 5 operations later, I had no problems, mental problems, up until I had to find a place to recoup, an R&R. Problem is I had no family, so therefore I had nowhere to go. The second time I was shot in the back of the head with a shotgun.
To me, PTSD is it's not curable, it's an ongoing issue, and you have to seek the help and find where you are within that, and then use the skills you learn to get out of it, if you like. It will never go away. And triggers do happen from time to time, but if you have the tools to sort it and also try to accept the community for what it is and how it is, and get on with it.
Has to do quite a bit, certainly has now, since sort of 1999, whereupon my leg, the knee that is, collapsed completely and I had to walk on crutches, consequently had to give up. Before that, I suppose the nearest thing to say, occasionally I'd walk around the road like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, dragging my leg. But that is, I mean, so I was able to do the job of electrician until 1999, and then I had to give it up. So really, in that sense, it did impact.
Probably since around about 1982, I noticed as a medic that I was not doing as well as I used to do. I'm the sort of person that runs towards a problem, you know, when other people are rushing away. And for some reason I stopped doing that, didn't like doing it for quite a while, so I knew something was up, but I didn't, at the time, as a soldier, you just got on with things.
I was in prison service for about 8 years when I realised that there were people with military backgrounds that saw conflict or even had seen someone die in front of them, and it's only when talking to them that I realised that their offence was related to what they had been through and what they had seen.
The cause of PTSD differs between sufferers. The sufferer is prone to experiencing triggers which reminds them of the event that is partly responsible for their condition.
I would be triggered by body parts that would bring on nightmares, daymares, jewellery that bodies or parts of bodies were wearing, and clothing, patterns of clothing, particularly paisley pattern, which is interesting. And they still happen, but I can now cope with them. But before I had the coping skills, I couldn't cope with it at all. I'd go even into, I don't know, a frozen state, a non-thinking state.
The ships were attacked by Argentinian jets. At this particular time, my rapier had a malfunction. Previously at San Carlos, I'd managed to shoot down an Air Force Skyhawk and a Mirage jet, so it was working then, and I proved I could do it. But at that, the most crucial time, the equipment failed, and the subsequent aftermath was 2 troop ships being hit, the Galahad and the Tristram, with the loss of 50 lives. Now, as a 19-year-old young lad, you feel a massive amount of guilt that you were involved. It was your fault, which I know it isn't because it's equipment. And there was even other soldiers around shouting abuse at us. Why didn't you fire your missiles? Thing. So after that period, that was the beginning of the guilt and the suicidal thoughts and the PTSD because of that one incident. That's where I would put it down to, definitely.
So I've still got it, and there are times when I just can't leave my flat because I just can't face going out the door. But as a rule, I can get on with most things with few problems. I do occasionally get panic attacks, anxiety attacks, whatever you want to call them.
There is a variety of treatments available to sufferers if they seek help and diagnosis. However, the outcomes of these treatments are not always effective.
Over the years, on and off, I've had treatment. It was probably maybe about 7 years after I'd left the military. And because of problems I'd had with my wife and getting, the alcohol, the outbursts, the shouting, the screaming, the nightmares, relationships can be a problem for people suffering from PTSD.
Originally a doctor, I went to many people looking for help, but there was none there. So initially I had counselling that wasn't successful, but in later years I had psychological treatment where rapid eye movement was used, which was successful.
I think because I couldn't speak, I was reluctant to speak. Once I started writing down, just pouring out, everything was coming out that I wanted to say that I couldn't say in words, speaking verbally. I did it all through writing, and that's what led on to writing poetry.
I support the patients while they're in hospital, and we reintroduce how to deal with their mental health. It's not all about giving them drugs. It's about coping strategies. It's about giving them support, giving them advice, teaching them how to cook and to support themselves.
I had to go to see my doctor, fill out endless forms. I was then sent to Mind, the mental health charity, and I had 8 one-hour sessions with a psychotherapist in Grays. Yeah, that was it. That's all I really had.
I managed to get it all down in a book form there, and the same with me poems, which are called Screaming in Silence, and they're about everything, war, crime, divorce, religion, politics, just basically life in general, how it affects everyone, because soldiers are part of, once you come out of the military, you're still part of society and you have opinions on things.
PTSD can result in feelings such as guilt, and in extreme cases, this could lead to suicide. Some veterans turn to alcohol as a way of escaping their trauma.
I think there's one major thing, which is suicide. I'm led to believe from things I read that ex-military personnel, they're not only living on the streets, but there's high incidence of suicide. They can't cope. I think they can't cope because they don't know really what's happening to them. So they drink, they take drugs, they then top themselves. And I think as a society we need to address that.
Most veterans were turning to drugs and alcohol because of the conflict. And to support their habit, they ended up doing bank robberies, became violent, so they ended up GBH, further assaults on other friends and family, and then eventually they were convicted and sent to prison.
Some veterans feel that the government and armed forces could improve mental health care support for veterans.
Outside the military, there's still quite a bit of ignorance, I think. I know when I was diagnosed, I went to see my boss to tell them, because obviously it's the sort of thing you have to tell. What? How long ago? Well, it should have been sorted out ages ago. Totally, you get ignorant, and there is ignorance everywhere. So it's just something you have to get on with.
When you come out of the army, your regiment and everything technically drop you like red hot coals. You're finished. In my case, they could have put me through to some form of charity, even the British Legion, to sort of say that I might well need support in one way or another, but neither for the wound or for any mental state.
The last 5-6 years, it's loads of money's been put in, but I do not believe that it's been put in the right places.
There are many charities that are involved in making sure that servicemen and women and veterans get the help and support they need.
With the help of the Royal British Legion Industries and SAFA, we got some groups together and we talked about their past, what made them proud to be serving, and we tried to enhance their the positive side of the forces to get them back into mentoring other prisoners, and also to get them back into the employment.
It's a shame that charities have to spring up to actually help when the military should have done it themselves. But people do help, and it's nice. So it would be nice to see the government do more to help soldiers that have PTSD.
I still, if I'd have wound the clock back, strangely enough, I wanted to be a soldier, so I'll probably do it again, which sounds insane. But everyone should live the dream and do what they want to do, and sometimes it doesn't work out like you think it was going to. Men who sit on chairs send us to war. They tell us how to fight. They add up the score. Men who sit on chairs send us back home, minus 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or more. Men who sit on chairs send letters to the bereaved. They tell of the heroism of what they have achieved. Men who sit on chairs sleep soundly in their beds, unlike the men in the psych wards being force-fed on their meds.